Hey friends, here I am in beautiful sunny Seattle. Who knew? This is the sunniest place on earth. My brother who lives here is a deep dark tan, whereas I live in New Mexico where the sun shines 345 days a year and I am not nearly as tan. So it's nice to be here. And I'm outdoors, just getting a little sun. I had if you saw my post yesterday, you know that I'm out here because I was doing a lecture at the Seattle Central Community College, which is where my brother runs the film program. Sorry about the planes overhead. There's probably going to be a few of them. And it was basically, I did a little talk on the creative process. I talked a little bit about my own background and shared some of the work that I've done, and then sort of leaned into a description of what how I think about the creative process, how I work with clients and students to basically stay in the game of creativity, stay in the game of a creative career. As I was emphasizing to the group today, staying in the game is the name of the game. It's the number one thing you can do to ensure that you keep evolving and that opportunities continue to present themselves. I have been through a number of different phases of my work, and almost, I think maybe because of the nature of my interests, I have so many interests. I've been lucky enough to just stumble into opportunities that let me really unpack those interests, that really let me explore and go pretty deep in each of the different domains that I've been that I've had a significant interest in. But what I really sort of focused on today was staying in the game as a kind of, it's easy enough to say that, right? It's easy enough to say, well, the main thing you got to do is just stay in the game, keep doing it, keep either finding outlets for the work you want to do or finding collaborators. But it's easier to say that than it is to do that, because the fact is, in order to stay in the game, we actually have to be playing the right game. In some ways, we have to sort of know the game, or at least we have to have enough of a sense of like, okay, here's how I'm gonna remain engaged with my creative process. I'm gonna remain connected to what I'm doing. I'm gonna either be reflecting on what I'm doing, or I'm going to be evolving what I'm doing. A lot of times for me, that has meant finding teachers, finding not necessarily always teachers, but either teachers or forms of training, or things where I just decide I'm gonna practice this now, and I pick something up and I run with it, and I just go as deep as I can. Right now, my deep kind of personal practice seems to be classical piano, which in a lot of ways is at the very core of who I am as an artist, and I have a long-standing relationship, obviously, with the instrument, and you could almost argue that's where I started because my family is a classical music family. But in a lot of other ways, it's a little bit of a weird leap for me to go and do and spend as much time as I've been spending over the last couple of months, maybe, working on something that I don't have any illusions about becoming a classical concert pianist. I don't have any. I recognize that my skill set is not really that. When I watch classical concert pianists play, I know that I'm not that kind of musician or that kind of artist. But but one interesting outgrowth of this recent obsession of mine is that the dialogue that I do have with other classical musicians who sometimes actually kind of are more that sort of concert, real straight and narrow classical concert type performer, when I'm in dialogue with them, I have increased facility for translating between what I do know, which is improvised music, jazz composition, lyric writing. I have a whole background of songwriting. I have a whole background of music that many classical musicians don't have. And I sort of have this, I feel like I'm building a bridge. I'm building a series of connections so that when I get into conversation, all of a sudden I'm equipped. I have a kind of, the vocabulary is all right there. And it's not even just the vocabulary, but it's like the way of thinking that goes into classical piano is front and center in my mind, and I can immediately apply it, or I can immediately see, so much of teaching, and this is one of the things that really endlessly inspires me about teaching, is figuring out how to help you. As you get to know a student, you start to see and understand where they are, where their perspective is, and the ability to create a bridge between where they are and something else, the next step in their evolution, new information that may be taking them kind of slightly beyond what they know. That's something that I just, for whatever reason, have a passion for. I love to do it. I love to watch a student get something new. And so actually, funny enough, like a student asked me today, she asked me a question about, how do you, she said, you seem like kind of multi-hyphenate, multidisciplinary type person. How have you managed to pivot, or how have you kind of continued to stay engaged in creativity, even as you haven't picked one single path? You've kind of gone this in some ways meandering path. And my answer was basically, I pick something. If sometimes the options present themselves, right? Sometimes a project or a group of collaborators or a deadline or whatever will just enter your life, and then you're kind of roped in. You have the options of saying yes or no, and if you say yes, you're in it. Now you're bound by that project, and then you do it to completion. Other times, and this has more recently been my experience, you have to pick something. And I almost want to say it doesn't matter what you pick, although it kind of does a little bit, but it matters much more that we choose something wholeheartedly and just go for it. We just go for it. We just pick up the ball and run with it, because wherever that takes us, no matter, even if that pursuit is not what we might call a success, you have moved. You're moving down the field. And in the case of classical piano, I'm not even concerned with what the success is of that. I do have aspirations to become a better performer and to perform a certain level of repertoire at a certain level of proficiency. That's definitely a goal. That's definitely what keeps me striving, keeps me working. But I'm also, I've done this long enough, and I've been in the game long enough that I know that there may be something else going on. That might be what's getting me to the piano every day and motivating my me to put one foot in front of the other in the work, but that may very well not be either the most important outcome of this or the kind of higher purpose that's showing up that I get inklings of, but I don't necessarily know the full story. But that doesn't matter. I just show up and do the work, and whatever's motivating me is what I use. So if I sit down with a Chopin etude and I'm finding it really difficult, or I'm finding that I have to completely overhaul my technique in order to play it, I'll just, and I'm, for whatever reason, oddly obsessed with that, then that's what I do. I let that have me. I kind of surrender to my own passion. Surrendering to our own passion is a really important part of this creative process, because if we can do that, then we will stay in the game. We will inherently stay in the game. It's the doubting our own passion, or not, having impulses but not being willing to follow them, or questioning them, or whatever. All the ways we kind of deflect our own inner calling. That's kind of where it gets dangerous, because you can end up not moving. Thinking, oh well, I'm not quite feeling the right thing yet. Well, we don't know that it's the right thing. We never know. Or maybe some of us do, and I think, certain really highly developed artists, if you watch someone really at the top of their game, they kind of know what they're doing. But for many of us, it's trusting the impulse that's getting us moving, letting that be enough, not demanding that we know some outcome, or that we know even the higher purpose. We're serving a higher purpose that we may not currently understand, and we may not ever understand. Hopefully we'll get a gradually increasingly accurate or increasingly complete impression of that, but it's entirely possible that we'll never really fully understand it. But that doesn't mean that we're not serving the higher purpose. That doesn't mean that surrendering to my passion now isn't enough of a service to that higher purpose. So, and that's how you stay in the game. That's a way of staying kind of on top of at least today's work, the movement that happens today, surrendering to our own passion. It's a big one. So I'm only out here not at the piano because there are people napping upstairs, and I didn't want to make noise and wake them up. But tomorrow I'll try to do this from the piano again. That's what I got today, people. Thanks for watching. Come to Seattle. The sun always shines in Seattle. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Much love. Look forward to seeing you soon.